Hey everyone, bit of old school classic to open today. So this is not a photograph was the title of that song, and semiotic analysis is the topic of this video, and this is going to be just one video this week. The seminar is going to be really important with regards to semiotic analysis because we're going to work through this theory and some examples and learn how to use the theory in an effective way. Semiotic analysis is a really important part of the toolkit of any media student, but sadly in my experience semiotic analysis is grossly misunderstood, and the reason why it's misunderstood is really straightforward. People don't actually do enough of it. What I mean by that is people can do semiotic analysis, discovering how meaning is constructed through the use of signs in a particular text. It's a really straightforward thing to do. But what students in particular, and even lecturers in my experience do as well, is you forget that it's a theory. It's created. And people in particular forget to draw inferences on meaning and how meaning is constructed with relation to ideology, which we've already covered in this course quite extensively. So I'm going to come on to the importance of all of that later on in this video. Let me just give you like a sad story to begin with. So I had a dissertation student in the last academic year who was looking at how subconscious concepts were represented in the films of three different filmmakers, including David Lynch and Salvador Dali. It was a really good dissertation. I really enjoyed it because I like, in particular, David Lynch's work a lot. Really intelligent in terms of psychodynamic theory and sort of Freudian theory, and how some of the conceptual notions which appear in Freud's work, especially around dreams and the meaning of dreams, are used in the work of those directors, how they're interpreted and how they're put on screen, but how they're rooted in these sort of long-lasting and eternal concepts of psychodynamic theory. Great and all that sort of stuff, and it didn't get a first. You might ask, okay, like you seem really positive about this piece of work, and you said it was good, and was it well written? Yes, it was well written. Yeah, she's a really good student. And was it referenced? Yes, it was referenced. It was really well referenced. Okay, well, I'm really confused now. I mean, were the texts chosen not appropriate? No, they were great. Was the analysis itself lacking? Actually, that was the strongest bit, the analysis, the close reading of scenes from the directors themselves was really impressive. So what was missing? Like, why didn't it get a first? Because she'd used the semiotic method. She'd used semiotic analysis as her analysis method and did not really employ semiotic analysis in a detailed way or outline it effectively in the methodology of the dissertation. And this happens all the time. People just ignore that semiotic analysis is a theory. People ignore that it has key theoretical points which need to be explained if you're going to use it. So if you go forward and do an essay on semiotic analysis, you're going to have to outline your understanding of what semiotic analysis is. You don't just go in and say, this red thing here might symbolize anger. I see that all the time, really. I do see that all the time. That's not sufficient. In order to use semiotics effectively, you're going to have to do some work on semiotics. You're going to have to read from the reading list that I've given you on this topic. You're going to have to employ those theories of semiotics that I discuss in this video and go further than that as well. You're going to have to introduce new ones. That's what being a student is all about. And for some reason, it's just semiotic analysis. People just think, oh, signs mean stuff, so I can just do that question, and it's common sense. And you know what? To a certain extent, it is common sense, but with a massive but, you do need to respect and you need to use the theory. And people who don't cite the key theorists in semiotics in their work when they're using semiotic theory really do really badly. We're talking like fail grades, because he's not doing an academic piece of work at that point. Anyway, that's like how not to do semiotics. Let's have a think about how to do semiotics. semiotics. So this video is going to outline Ferdinand de Saussure's semiotics, Roland Barthes' semiotics. What I think is critically important, which a lot of students miss out on, is the link between semiotics, myth, and ideology. And then point 4 is really relating to the seminar for this lecture, where we'll be doing some semiotic analysis. So I'm not going to sit and do it. I'll kind of be doing semiotic analysis through this, I guess, anyway. So here's a wonderful image to begin with. I ask you, my friends, what is this? Well, it's a dog, isn't it? Yeah, it's a dog. You know, I'm looking at that. That's a dog. Yeah. Oh, is it? Now, if you dabble in other languages, I mean, I dabble, so I speak a bit of Welsh. It's key. I speak German. Hund. And you can imagine, given the diversity of our group, right, you all have different words for dog. So does that mean the word dog is wrong? Even in English, you might say dog. Okay, well, we could call it the hound. You know, or we might have a name which symbolizes that dog. Or, you know, you could call him good boy, because he might well be a good boy. And they would all be appropriate. Okay. Interesting stuff, eh? But that's a dog, right? If you said cat, I'd be like, no, dude. No, that's not cat. That's not a table. You know, it's got 4 legs, like a table, but that's not a table. You know, we know it's a dog. Right? So really, we have a shared set of words that we can use. So when somebody says to me, that's a dog, I can nod and say, yeah. Truth check. You're right. That is a dog. And I think this is, who are you trying to teach? This is not primary school, but this is really, really important in terms of getting to what semiotics is. So, for Ferdinand de Saussure, who's kind of the father of semiotics, and to a large extent the father of structuralism as well, semiotics is a science that studies the life of signs within society. And the key word there is signs. What we are interested in semiotics is signs. And here are a set of signs for this image which would make sense. The image itself is a sign, and we have other signs, dog, shen, etc., etc., hund. These are all appropriate signs for this image. They all refer to it. So what does this start to tell us? Well, the sign for dog in English is shared. Okay, it's an agreed upon concept. When I say, have you seen my dog? The person who I'm talking to will have a mental image or a mental concept of a dog. And it could be this dog here, for example. But we have a shared conceptual understanding of what a dog is. If in France, if you say chien, okay, everyone knows what you're talking about. The sign is different between different linguistic cultures, but the concept is the same. So, signs are all about how we establish meaning for different things in different languages. And indeed, now we should start thinking about, okay, so when we talk about like language of film, oh wow, yeah, that's about establishing shared meanings in different contexts with this language of film, for example. So we can have 2 alternative signs for the dog. The image is a sign, or the 3-letter word dog is also a sign. These are different signs which refer to the same thing. Wow, signs can be visual as well as having words. That's interesting, right? That's why when we use terms like language and so on in semiotics, we're not literally referring to written language always. You know, there are visual signs just as well as there are linguistic signs, for example. So what is a sign? Well, according to Saussure, a sign is made up of 2 things, the signifier and the signified. In the case I just showed you, the 3 letters DOG are the signifier. That's signifier of dog. And the signified is our mental concept of a dog, i.e. a hairy animal with 4 legs. Boom! That's our shared understanding of dogs. So a sign is made up, very important here, sign is made up of 2 parts, the signifier and what it signifies, the signified element. So your signifier is if you like, the phenomenal aspect, the word, the sound, the image, and the signified is our mental concept. So I'll just flip it around, okay? The signifier, we have a sign here. The signifier is the photographic representation of the dog, and the signified is our mental concept of a dog, a hairy animal with 4 legs. And that's why we understand. We look at that and say, that is not a chair, that is a dog, right? That is a dog. At this point, you might be thinking, damn, semiotics is easy. Yes and no is the answer to that. Semiotics is kind of easy, but yeah, you've got to pay attention to the detail. So in this very, very famous image, ce n'est pas un pipe. This is not a pipe. It is not a pipe. It is a visual representation of a pipe. But you couldn't pick it up and smoke it. But it is a representation of a pipe. Very clever, kind of. That is not a dog, of course. It is the representation of dog. It is a sign of the dog. But the sign, and just like in the previous thing with the pipe, the sign is not the thing. Okay? You know, if you say like, you know, point at me and you say like man, yes, man, good. But I am not all men. I am not, some people would say I'm not even half a man, and then I'd have to get into a fight and there'd be a whole thing and we wouldn't want to get into it. But this is, you know, the visual representation or the sign itself is not the thing itself. It is how we discuss and talk and create meaning in language to have concepts which are useful to us, but they do not necessarily refer to the thing itself. It's a very deep philosophical point about ontology, and it might go over some of your heads. Don't worry about it too much. If you do some reading, it will make sense. Really what we're interested in is this notion of the shared conceptual map. So, yeah, a stick person on the left. Do you want an orange? Stick person on the right? No, I prefer bananas. They have a shared conceptual map. They know what one another's talking about. You know? Yeah, great, fantastic. And then they can therefore use these concepts in an, I know it's not the greatest conversation that's ever happened on Earth, but it is a conversation nevertheless that has depth and meaning because they understand what they're talking about. Because they both understand what the sign orange refers to, and they have a shared, not just a concept, but that concept is shared, so they have a shared conceptual map. Damn! Good stuff, no? So, usually in a lecture I get you all to do this, but I've just sprung up an image here. And what we have is a conventional meaning of this image. So I look at that image and straight away I go, London. Do you know? London. I look at this one and I go, Australia. I look at this one and I go, Ireland. Shamrock and that. None of those images, you know, the first image was not London. Second image was not Australia. Third image, that's not Ireland or, you know, good luck or something. But the concept we associate with those images is conventional in a particular way. And so all conveyance of meaning within a given society is really contingent upon us all sharing these concepts. We have a shared conceptual framework that we use. And if we're outside of that framework, it's really, really difficult to get any meaning across in a particular society, in a particular culture. This is the difference. We see these differences jarring between generations, right? So people younger than me use words to describe things, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? You know, are you, you know, is there something wrong with you? Do you need help? Are you on medication? But that's actually a normal feature of society. As society changes, as linguistic practices change, then the use of signs in a society becomes kind of weird and odd for certain groups in society, and it's just normal. Just me getting old, basically, which is, you know, it's okay. Happens to us all. That's all I want to talk about Saussure. Saussure's key point is to define what the sign is and to point us towards the utility of the sign. And the sign is there to communicate meaning and understanding in a particular linguistic society. We do this through sharing particular concepts with one another, so we can deploy the sign in language to refer to roughly the same things, and we all know what we're talking about. Great. Now, Roland Barthes, who is an extremely important figure in semiotics. It cannot be underestimated how critically important he is, and is critically important in other fields as well, and is considered one of the great sociologists of all time. Barthes takes on, if you like, the mantle of de Saussure and pushes it further and gives us further utility. Barthes identifies two levels of meaning, if you like, in semiotics: denotation and connotation. Denotation is the first, most obvious, most literal meaning signified by a sign, what we call first order signification. And connotation is the wider cultural meaning, or code, as he says, the second order signification. I'll go through these quite carefully because building on Saussure, things can get a little complex, and I think this is why sometimes people shy away from semiotics as a method, because really they're not confident with the use of this kind of language. But if you want to tackle semiotics, if you want to do anything in film theory and in terms of television analysis, in terms of music analysis, anything like that, you're going to have to get used to using these things, because you're going to have to use them with confidence. And they're really not that difficult, but it does require a bit of discipline on our part in order to use them correctly. So here's actually an example used from one of Barthes' works in 1977, The Rhetoric of the Image. Excuse me. And it's an advert for the company Panzani. It's a fairly conventional advert of its time. We're talking in the 1970s here. You may think, okay, so what, Leighton? What's the point of this? Well, what Barthes does in The Rhetoric of the Image is give us a sort of a very detailed understanding of what's going on in this image, and therefore what is trying to be constructed in this image. The meaning of the image has been coded in the signs used, and we as consumers decode the image in particular ways, and through that process of decoding we establish an understanding of what's going on. So at the level of denotation, remember that sort of first level signification that Barthes is talking about, what do we have? Denotation is the process where we identify what signs are used. So we have some packets of pasta, right? Packets of spaghetti, actually. A tin, yes. A sachet, yes. Some tomatoes, yes. Some onions are in there. There's a few peppers, a mushroom over there on the side, all emerging from a half-open string bag in yellows and greens on a red background. So if we want to go back to the level of the sign, right, we've got a photographic representation of a tomato, which is the signifier, and then the signified is a concept of a tomato, right? So this is all at the level of denotation. Now, at the level of connotation, what is going on? What is at the higher level? What are the mental concepts at play here? Well, for Barthes, we have a return from the market. We've got this string bag and, fresh ingredients. We've got freshness and domestic preparation. We have Italianicity. The color scheme is not by accident. Green, red, and sort of white, yellow. It's trying to mirror the Italian tricolor. The notion of total calorie service. The products of Panzani give you an entire meal. It's full on. We have a representation of a still life here. So it's got relationships towards art. So at the level of sign, we have signifiers, yellow, green, and red colors. And what that signifies is Italianicity. And at the level of connotation, then we go further than that, and we ask ourselves, well, what does Italianicity mean? It means good food, right? Italian cooking, yeah, that's the boy, that stuff. I love me some Italian cooking. They know how to bang out some decent food, the Italians. Therefore, yeah, this stuff, this is the bomb, right? I'm getting me some of this stuff. Wow. So, what do we get from Roland Barthes? If you like, we get an extension beyond the sign and the signifier into this sort of level of connotation. What he uses is denotation and connotation. Denotation, what's there? Connotation, how does this link to, how do we extend this further? How does this go further than that? What are the concepts which are there? So here's a great one, right? And I usually do this example in class, and there's usually at least like half a dozen to a dozen people in class who've got a bottle of Evian with them, which makes this example really good. Now, I suspect that very few of you have got a bottle of Evian in front of you anymore, but you might. I mean, you might do. You might be drinking water. You could be drinking neat gin for all I know. And if you are, you know, take it easy, right? There's another like 15 minutes of this video to go. Don't get absolutely ratted at this point. But we have a very famous logo, right? Evian. And let's just take a second to appreciate this. You know, you've got in quite bright red letters on the front, Evian. It's, you know, you've got an underpinning there, natural spring water, and you've got this image over the top then. You know, you can see already, I think, where this is going in terms of analysis. So the Evian logo, what do we have? First order of signification. Signifier, printed blue triangles. Remember what I said earlier about, you know, the picture wasn't a dog and it was not a pipe? That's not a mountain. That's a blue triangle. We read it as a mountain because it is the signified, yeah? So the denotative meaning is mountains, okay? But the signifier is just a blue triangle, right? But we have a concept of, ooh, look at that shape there. Ooh, mountain. Damn. Everyone sees it as a mountain. Don't worry about it. The second order of signification and the connotative meaning. Mountains. What do mountains mean to us? Fresh air, natural, healthy. If you're climbing mountains, you know, like me, you know, spending half your life on the sofa, you know, playing, you know, Resident Evil 2 remake or something, you know, you're not doing that, you know, you're out there, you're doing stuff, you're in this natural environment, it's all good. The connotative meaning is freshness. And we look at Evian water and we think, yeah, this water is good, you know, it's fresh water, it's from the mountains, it's got to be good for me. It's actually no better for you than tap water, but that's not important, right? Because it's fresh and, you know, so on, and you're all about that stuff, and people are all about that stuff, and people go jogging, and people go mountain biking, and people exercise, and I just look at these people and they make me want to vomit. So I might have different connotative meanings with going on here, that's all I'm telling you people. But the connotation, the choice of this sign is to develop that meaning of freshness. Are we getting somewhere, people? I think we are. So I'm actually going to skip over this because we're going to go through this method. We're going to go through this a little bit further. But really, Barth calls the second order of signification myth. Okay? I don't know why I've repeated that in the slide there. That's kind of weird, no? Maybe I'm just trying to drum it home to you people. So the second order signification, right? The connotative level, he calls it myth. And really, myth is a very, very important concept. So myth and ideology are both terms which refer to meanings that come to seem natural, common sense, or normal. We know that from ideology already, right? When we studied ideology. So what the semiotic approach gives us is a way of denaturalizing these kind of meanings and of showing how they're always fabricated. So all meaning in text is fabricated, right? It can also help us link these fabrications to the meanings of structures of power. And Barth does this explicitly in his work, so he links Marxist theory with semiotic methods. And really this bridge to say, like, you know, this concept of freshness, the myth, and we don't mean myth really in like the sense of it's false or anything like that. Myth is a story, okay? And in Barth's work, really what we have is that second order, you know, the connotative level. This relates to, you know, the kind of stories, the discourses, to use another word that I've used, that occur within a given society. These are constructed, and they're continually constructed through the use of signs. And we understand them, and we know them, and we play into them, and they form part of our shared cultural understanding. And ideology is a massively important part of that. You might think, okay, what the fuck are you banging on about, you stupid man? So when you come to applying this approach, it can seem very straightforward, but your use of terms needs to be exact. The chapter in Visual Methodologies by Gillian Rose is a very, very good thing. And if you want to read more, and I think I'm going to put this up on Canvas for you guys, so it is very important. But That last bullet point there is the killer. You always combine semiotics with ideology critique in order to strengthen your argument. So when you're looking at a text and you're doing a semiotic analysis, you always need to be thinking towards that level of myth. And within myth, there's ideology. So within any given media text, they have used signs to encode a particular ideological message. Just like the Pasta advert was encoding Italianicity. Just like Evian is encoding freshness. Freshness is an ideology, right? It's an ideology within society. It means certain things. All texts are doing this. And the key to semiotic analysis is not just to say, like, you know, this means that and this means that. You've got to extend it to that level of myth and ideology. So it's got to be semiotics, myth, ideology. We will do more of this in the seminar for this. I finished this really, really quickly. Read, seminar. We're going to be on top of this, people. Good. See you for the next video.